Hello and welcome to your NEWSMAX Daily for Monday, November 4th, 2024, 11/4/24, the 309th day of the year, the first of 4 Mondays this month, and the final day before Election Day. Finally, and I don't know if things are going to get any less crazy after Election Day. Evidenced by the record-breaking numbers of early voting, more than 77 million Americans already casting their ballot, and the unprecedented amount of campaigning over the weekend.
On Tuesday, just go out and vote, and we're going to close this thing out, and it's going to be party time. It's going to be party time.
Michigan, I am here to ask for your vote. I am here to ask for your vote.
Both former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris will spend the final day of the race making multiple campaign stops in battleground states today, but mainly Pennsylvania. Trump already started the day with a 10 a.m. rally in Raleigh, North Carolina. Then he'll go to Reading, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, and late tonight close it all out in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Holy cow. Vice President Harris is completely focused on Pennsylvania. She has events today in Allentown, Pittsburgh, and then wraps it up in the Democrat stronghold of Philadelphia. With the latest polls from everywhere, NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, Ipsos, Wall Street Journal, etc., showing the race virtually tied. Donald Trump leading by a point, maybe 2 in many areas. Kamala Harris leading by a point, maybe 2 in some areas as well, which is all within the margin of error. And honestly, I don't believe the polls. I'm not predicting who's going to win. I'm just predicting that the polls will be inaccurate. A final swing state poll out this morning. The New York Times Siena College poll shows Trump surging in Pennsylvania, but also shows Harris gaining some ground in North Carolina, which is one of the places she campaigned this weekend, and again, where Trump is right now. If the election ends up being as close as the polls are saying, and Pennsylvania is a deciding factor, it could take days to know who wins Pennsylvania, because the state does not allow election workers to open mail-in ballots on Election Day, something President Trump complained about in 2020 and during this campaign.
They have to be decided by 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock on Tuesday night.
And over the weekend, Kamala Harris made what NBC called a surprise appearance on Saturday Night Live. The Trump team was quick to point out a little thing called fairness in broadcasting, which requires equal time for candidates. So NBC gave Trump a free ad during yesterday's NASCAR race, which I was watching along with some football, and eventually I just had to turn it off because of the excessive amount of not only political advertising, but abortion ads specifically. During every commercial break, it literally became unwatchable. Trump senior advisor Corey Lewandowski, who was traveling with the former president this weekend, spoke with NewsMax's Rita Cosby on Saturday.
Rita, I'm probably going to get in trouble. There's probably some FAA violation, but I'm actually on the Trump Force One airplane right now, flying to North Carolina with President Trump, and it's such an honor to be with you today.
So where is the president? Is he near you right now?
This is a very big plane. He's right around the corner from me, but he can hear me, and he knows that I'm on with you, and he's a big fan of yours, as you know.
Well, thank you. Please give him my love and, of course, my best wishes. I just talked with him recently, and I can't believe this. This is down to the wire. How are you feeling? How's the president feeling?
Well, look, we believe the momentum is on the side of the Trump campaign right now. You see that every battleground state, Donald Trump continues to maintain a lead within the margin of error, but a lead. And so we feel very good about that. We feel very good about the early voting, which is transpiring. And the reason, Rita, that we're going to Virginia today after we do a rally in North Carolina is because Donald Trump's message of economic opportunity and safety and security for everyone is expanding the map, and Donald Trump is going to win this race with over 300 electoral votes.
You know, the big issues are on the table, Corey, and I can't think of a more stark contrast. The president focused on the economy. The president focused on the border. The president focused on what it costs everyday Americans when they're gassing their tank or going to the grocery store. And then the juxtaposition of Kamala Harris blasting President Trump and giving the same word salad answers. It's really incredible. You've covered a lot of, campaigns. You've been right in the thick of it, right there at the helm with this president. Isn't it an extraordinary moment that we still don't know a lot of the answers of what she stands for, and Election Day is 3 days away?
Well, and Rita, if your viewers had the chance to watch her today in Wisconsin, she gave a press conference and said, I'm going to have a plan on day one. She has no plan. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. The reality is she's had 4 years to work on behalf of the American people to solve these problems. And everyone's problems have only gotten worse, whether it's at the border. She is the border czar. We now know that, the population of 38 states is what has been let into the border so far under this administration. 13,099 murderers let into the country. That's 4 murderers for every single county in America when you think about that. The 3,140 plus counties in America, 13,099 murderers. That means 4 murderers are in every single county because of her policies. And when you look at the economic calamity that this administration has put us in, people want to change. They want economic prosperity for themselves. They know Donald Trump is going to have no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security, and that gives them all more money for themselves.
That is Trump senior campaign advisor Corey Lewandowski, live from Trump Force One. I mentioned the TV commercials. That was another one. Trump is going to cut Social Security every other commercial break, when he's been saying every single day on the campaign trail that he wants to eliminate tax on Social Security. For more on the election, this is NewsMax host Tom Basile.
Not since the late 1880s have we had a presidential election where each candidate has a White House record to run on. Not since Teddy Roosevelt has a former president attempted to win a non-consecutive term, and not since 1893 has that been accomplished. It's been more than half a century since a presidential candidate obtained a nomination without being elected through a single primary or caucus without getting a single vote. Then, as now, the result of an unpopular sitting president bowing out of the race. The uniqueness of this national journey that we have all been on together is part of what makes the choice we face interesting and exciting. It also makes it weighty and consequential. The choice is about more than just one person. It's about a way of life. As we've seen, the same people who are now telling you that Mr. Trump is unstable covered up the mental and physical decline of the sitting president for 4 years.
In Joe Biden, we have a president who is probably one of the boldest and strongest American presidents we have had. I work with Joe Biden every day. The work that under Joe Biden's leadership our administration has accomplished is transformative.
The same people who were calling Mr. Trump a fascist instituted a vaccine mandate that led to millions of Americans either being fired from their jobs or forced to surrender their bodily autonomy because the state demanded it.
All employers with 100 or more employees that together employ over 80 million workers to ensure their workforces are fully vaccinated.
It didn't stop transmission or infection, by the way. The same people who rail against Republicans over women's rights are trying to destroy the right to privacy for women and girls through executive action and erode parental rights as part of a dangerous campaign to normalize gender dysphoria. The same people who want you to think that Republicans are the purveyors of wholesale political violence want you to forget all about the destruction of the Black Lives Matter riots, the pro-Hamas riots, the anti-Semitism, the gang violence, and the other devastating human impacts of their policies. The same people who've had one word to describe Trump
is acting like a third world dictator here.
A wannabe dictator like Donald Trump.
Donald Trump continues to behave like an itinerant dictator.
They helped collapse the southern border with 94 executive orders, leading to death and destruction. They attempted to unilaterally and illegally cancel billions in student loan debt, illegally prevent property owners from evicting deadbeat tenants, and impose their radical social agenda on school systems by fiat. The same people who would tell you that mean tweets are unconscionable are the same people who want to police your pronouns and speech and get you fired for so-called microaggressions. They're the same people who have created a protected class of government bureaucrats who make more money and have better benefits than private sector workers with virtually no accountability. The same people who will tell you that Republicans and conservatives are intolerant and racist are the very same people who have built and weaponized a censorship complex and cancel culture that is totally antithetical to free speech. The same people who compared Mr. Trump's Madison Square Garden rally to a pro-Nazi event held there in 1939.
Trump actually reenacting the Madison Square Garden rally in 1939.
Also want you to ignore the fact that Bill Clinton accepted the Democratic presidential nomination at the same arena in 1992. They're the same people who want to institutionalize discrimination and force religious institutions to violate their beliefs, even using the FBI to infiltrate churches and brand Catholics as domestic extremists. The same Democrats who claim Trump is out for revenge are the very same people who used the government to spy on his campaign, concocted 2 sham impeachments, the phony Russia collusion narrative, and ripped the blindfold off of Lady Justice to use lawfare against their political opponents. They are still trying to throw the 45th president in jail for life, folks.
Do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
The same people who are now telling you that Mr. Trump is power hungry have already told you that if they win, they will change the rules in the United States Senate to ensure that their agenda is just rammed through. They will pack the Supreme Court until they get justices to contort the Constitution to fit their agenda and attempt to wipe clean the genius of our founders by eliminating the Electoral College. The same people who will compare Donald Trump to a mass murderer are the same people who have facilitated more death at the hands of drug cartels, foreign criminals, through the intentional degradation of our justice system than any other administration in history. The same people who will yell at the top of their lungs about preserving our democracy are opposed to voter identification and consistently vote against blocking non-citizens from voting. All of this talk, folks, about democracy is not by accident. When people show you who they really are, believe them.
Is there anything else that anyone could possibly need to know? Tom Basile just explained American politics and the importance of this election to you in 5.5 minutes. The unfortunate thing is there is hardly anybody, if anyone, who supports Kamala Harris that is going to see that, right? Much of what Tom said has been featured in various Trump ads, so you hope it's getting through, right? Tom also had a sit-down interview with House Speaker Mike Johnson.
President Biden this week referred to Trump supporters as garbage. There has been a pretty dramatic shift in the tone and the tenor of the Democrats' closing argument. Yeah. They went from joy to Republicans are fascists and racists and Trump is Hitler and whatnot. Right. Your reaction to that?
Well, their closing argument in this campaign is not only uninspiring, it's dark and foreboding and angry, and it's the exact opposite of what they tried to project when they came out of the blocks with Kamala Harris's campaign. I don't think the American people are buying that. I think this election is ultimately going to be about record and not rhetoric, and they're looking at the actual performance of both of these candidates for president. You know, this is an unusual year for that. Not since the late 1880s have you had two persons in a contest who have actually had an administration. We had a Trump administration. We've had a Harris administration with Biden. And the question that President Trump keeps returning to and begins, as he began in Madison Square Garden with his first question, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And there's not a single American who can answer that question affirmatively. And that's why Kamala Harris doesn't talk about policy. She doesn't talk about her record. They're running a campaign based on fantasy over fact. But the American people are smart, and they know that their families, their small businesses, everybody will be better off on the security standpoint, from liberty, opportunity, if you elect President Trump and the Republicans and put us back in charge. And I think that's why we'll get that opportunity.
You mentioned the Madison Square Garden event. You were there last week. That was a big part of President Trump's closing argument on this campaign. He mentioned you about a dozen times, I think, during that speech. Talk to me about your relationship with him and how that has developed over the last year.
Well, we have a great working relationship. It goes back 8 years because I came to Washington the same time he did in January 2017 as a freshman in Congress. And we began to work together from the very beginning on big issues. And then I defended him twice in impeachment defense when they went their bogus impeachment efforts after him. And we've been through a lot of valleys together. And so we've developed this great working relationship of trust. And he knows that when I provide counsel to him or tell him something I have to do, that what I'm doing is in good faith and in his best interest and the best interest of the country. And I think that is a great foundation for us to tackle the challenges that are ahead of us. And, you know, I think President Trump's head and his heart are in exactly the right place where you would want the next commander-in-chief to be. We're facing the greatest, I guess, collection of challenges probably that we've faced since World War II as a nation, maybe since the Civil War. I tell him all the time, Mr. President, I believe you're going to be the most consequential president of the modern era in your next term because, sir, we have to fix everything now. And he knows that. And it's going to be policy and agenda driven. We're looking forward to not wasting one moment. As soon as the proverbial ball is handed to us, we're going to run the plays and we're going to turn this country around. And
the average American has seen sort of a cumulative inflation of about 25% under this administration. We obviously have an unimaginable issue with immigration, crime coming across the border, and drugs. The former president's been very disciplined on both of those points. That is what he continues to talk about, tackling both of those. Talk to us, should you be successful on Tuesday and you retain a House majority, how do you even begin to try to address the issue of inflation and the issue of immigration right out the gate in January?
Well, you begin with sound leadership and a plan. I think we'll secure the border on day one. I think it will be immediately upon President Trump's taking the oath of office. He'll issue an executive order under Section 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act, which gives the president unilateral authority to close the border if he deems it to be in the nation's interest. He will take a step like that, and then we'll come behind with legislation. Immediately thereafter, we will turn to the economy. We know how to bring about, to revive the free market and bring about economic prosperity for the American people. We've done it already. His first administration, we achieved that after 2 years. The greatest economy in the history of the world, not just the U.S. And so we'll extend the Trump-era tax cuts to make sure they don't expire and have the largest tax increase in U.S. history, which would happen in 2025. And then we're going to dramatically reform the regulatory state. Right now, we have whole industries facing existential threats to their existence because the agencies of the executive branch have been weaponized against them. So we're going to bring them to heel, and we're going to get the government's boot off the neck of job creators and entrepreneurs and risk takers, and that will allow the free market to thrive again. So it'll be a pro-growth economy.
House Speaker Mike Johnson on America Right Now with Tom Basile. That's Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Must-see weekend programming on Newsmax. The speaker went on to say that Trump's energy policy would be at the heart of all of it, and it will be a very aggressive first 100-day agenda. Not that that would be a surprise to anybody. On Sunday agenda, Lidia Curanaj recapped the Democrats and the media's attacks this past week on Trump.
Headline after headline this week reporting Trump wants to put Liz Cheney in front of a firing squad. I mean, just look at these ridiculous headlines. Trump fantasizes about guns pointed at Liz Cheney's face. Are you kidding me? From Rolling Stone to ABC News. Yet here's what President Trump actually said about Liz Cheney.
She couldn't stand me is that she always wanted to go to war with people. I don't want to go to war. She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face. You know, they're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy.
What's wrong with what President Trump just said about Liz Cheney and all of the other warmongers out there? It is easy to send our young sons and daughters off to war when they're not the ones looking down the barrel of a gun. Do you see now how radically left, how anti-American the legacy media has become? Thankfully, some members of the media, they are pushing back, but more should. They're sick of being pawns in this sick game of lies. I want you to take a look at this incident. Washington Post podcast host Jonathan Capehart. He falsely claims Trump is already planning to contest this election.
Is it me, or does it seem like this week Donald Trump is laying the groundwork for contesting the election by complaining that cheating was taking place in Pennsylvania by suing Bucks County for alleged irregularities? And this is on top of his continual assertion that if he loses, it's because of cheating.
And panelists and contributing columnist to the Washington Post, Hugh Hewitt, that was the guy in the upper right-hand corner, he responded to that question in the most epic way. Take a look at what he said.
We are news people, even though we have opinions, and we have to report the whole story if we bring up part of the story. So, yes, he's upset about Bucks County, but he was right, and he won in court. That's the story.
I'll let you keep going, Jonathan.
No, I don't appreciate being lectured about reporting when many times you come here saying lots of things that aren't.
I won't come back, Jonathan. I'm done. I'm done. This is the most unfair election ad I have ever been a part of. You guys are working. That's fine. I'm done.
Wow. Calling it an election ad, and that's exactly what it was. And the look on that host's face, that was just absolutely priceless. Mwah, chef's kiss. Bravo to you, Hugh Hewitt. I feel your frustration, as we all do. We are done with the fake news, the legacy media that not only distorts the facts, but leaves out pertinent ones to achieve its ultimate narrative, right? That President Trump, that guy right there, he's the big bad boogeyman, threat to democracy. They want to throw away all of his achievements, a stable economy, thriving economy, national security. But no, of course, Trump is the threat. You know what the real threat to democracy is? It's you, fake news. You're the propaganda machine working in concert with the Biden-Harris regime. The news is the only industry protected by the Constitution. And I think it's time that all of the people spewing the misinformation out there is held accountable for its lies. Trump is now suing 60 Minutes for editing Kamala's responses to make her sound more intelligent. I was thinking about this. God only knows how many other times that has happened, and not just with Kamala. As the saying goes, whoever controls the media controls the masses. But I think that could soon end with a Trump victory. You know, Trump, he's not a perfect man. He is not the perfect candidate. But right now, he is our only hope to save this nation.
NEWSMAX host Lidia Curanaj on Sunday Agenda. And let's go all the way back to Friday night when Rob Schmitt also had a segment on Trump's Liz Cheney comment and the media reaction.
Maybe people constantly searching for wars to send your children into should try fighting in one themselves. That was the comment. Democrats and their media, though, immediately went berserk. Liz Cheney herself tweeting out, "This is how dictators destroy free nations. They threaten those who speak against them with death." Just an unserious person, willing to lie through her teeth to claw back into some kind of power, even through the Democrat Party, after decimating her political career by joining Nancy Pelosi's Soviet-style one-sided J6 committee. An array of headlines out there to support Cheney's nonsense. The Washington Post claims Trump wants guns trained on Liz Cheney's face. Politico's headline suggesting 9 barrels shooting at Cheney. Trump reverts to violent rhetoric. Yes, this is the media when you're 4 days from an election. Here was Kamala this afternoon, and she was even worse. Another humiliating attempt by Kamala Harris.
He has increased his violent rhetoric, Donald Trump has, about political opponents, and in great detail, suggested rifles should be trained on former Representative Liz Cheney. This must be disqualifying.
Kamala built up the nerve to speak for 45 seconds again today. How special. What should be disqualifying, Miss Kamala, is a candidate thinking that American adults are actually dumb enough to fall for this level of politics. That's what should be disqualifying. Here was MSNBC this morning.
This is absolutely beyond the pale. It's a direct threat, not 9 barrels pointed at her, 9 barrels shooting at her.
Can you smell the desperation through your TV screen? This is as bad as it gets. And here's how CNN sounded last night.
He's saying quite explicitly and unambiguously that Liz Cheney should be shot, should be executed by firing squad.
4 days out from Election Day, and former President Donald Trump is escalating his violent rhetoric, suggesting one of his most prominent critics, the former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, should be fired upon.
Completely inappropriate, dangerous, and unbecoming of a leader.
He says 9 barrels shooting at her. That obviously evokes images of a firing squad. It evokes images of an execution.
People vote for this. I don't know how, but people do. The first person that you heard in that clip was political pundit Jonah Goldberg, who is a big-time never-Trumper. You probably know that. Goldberg spoke before, though, he even knew what he was talking about. And we give credit where it's due. He eventually listened to Trump's entire statement, and Jonah Goldberg retracted his comments, saying, "This morning on CNN, I referred to Trump's rifles quote as him advocating a firing squad for Liz Cheney. I was reacting in haste to what were objectively appalling and irresponsible comments that had been framed in the setup piece in the context of previous statements Trump made about shooting protesters and having generals executed. Still, he says, I was wrong to say he was calling for a firing squad execution. After I said that, my co-panelist, Brad Todd, made the case that I was wrong. Brad was right, and again, I was wrong." Kamala surrogate Joe Walsh, famous from Twitter, even admitting Trump did not call for Liz Cheney to be executed. This is what's so wrong with our politics today. Look, you know how I feel about Trump, and I've been out there every day for 2 to 3 months campaigning my ass off to help get Kamala Harris elected. But this short clip is so deceptive. These are the people that are trying to get Kamala Harris elected that aren't able to be as fake as she can be in order to get that job done. Points to them.
Rob Schmitt is the host of Rob Schmitt Tonight. Check it out tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern on NewsMax. As the possibilities of Trump winning a second term started to become more and more of a reality, we started to slowly see some liberal pundits and even some Democrat lawmakers, as I pointed out a week or two ago, start evolving into a little bit more of a neutral stance, right? Like, just in case Trump wins, I should do this or say this.
Everything Kamala says is a lie. She has no vision, no ideas, and she has absolutely no solutions. But take a look at this for a second, because this is just terrible. Take a look.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I will speak about Donald Trump. Donald Trump, 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 Trump.
I can't stand it. I can't stand it, Marco. So, no, this was the other night. She made a speech. Every sentence was about me. Our great First Lady said, "Darling, are you okay?" They asked her about the economy. Donald Trump. No, they've been there for 4 years, the whole thing. What they did to this country is record-setting, and especially at the border, because that inflation's going to come roaring down. You know, as soon as we open up the gas spigot, the oil and gas, we had $1.84. I used to say $1.87. I was corrected by the government manuals. So I said, I'll take it 3 cents. But we had $1.84 gasoline. Do you like that? How does that sound?
That was Donald Trump in Georgia last night. He will be repeating that message in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Michigan today and tonight, as I mentioned. Kamala Harris has 3 events, all in Pennsylvania today. And this, as they say, is for all the marbles, right? Hours to go. If you haven't voted yet, make sure you have a plan to vote tomorrow. If you know people that haven't voted, help get them out to the polls tomorrow as well. The current president returned to the White House today after spending Sunday at his home in Delaware. The president and first lady participated in a campaign event on Saturday night in Scranton. The only thing on Biden's calendar today outside of his daily briefing is a call to U.S. service members thanking them for their recent counterterrorism operations in Iraq and Syria. Over the weekend, the Pentagon and the Biden-Harris administration announced it would send more warships and bombers to the Middle East as tensions continue to rise between Israel and Iran. This would be the biggest story of the day on a Monday morning, right after this announcement was made over the weekend. But no, it's like nothing else in the world or in the country matters because of the election. Except Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, and mostly Donald Trump, right? That's one of my many complaints with the media coverage of elections. It's like for 3, 4, 5 months, nothing else in the world matters. The music and entertainment world today mourning the loss of industry icon Quincy Jones, who produced music for stars like Frank Sinatra, Aretha Franklin, Michael Jackson, and many others, as well as composing dozens of film scores. Quincy Jones, a true titan of the industry, was 91. On Wall Street, investors are also now on edge, awaiting the outcome of the election as well. Stock markets were flat at the open this morning. The U.S. dollar a bit weaker around the world, and oil nearly $2 a barrel higher. Be sure to keep up with all of the news on Newsmax, newsmax.com, and make sure you're streaming on Newsmax Plus for the most complete lineup of all your favorite shows, hosts, and guests podcasts, newsmaxplus.com. And make sure you check out Rob Schmitt Tonight, The Record with Greta Van Susteren, Carl Higbee on Frontline, Bianca De La Garza on Newsline, The Chris Salcedo Show, Finity, American Agenda, and much, much more, with expert analysis from people like Mark Halpern, Senator Rick Santorum, Governor Huckabee, retired General Blaine Holt, Hogan Gidley, Judge Napolitano, and many, many others. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you for listening to the NEWSMAX Daily. This is it, gang, the final home stretch. As I mentioned, if you are voting tomorrow, do not let anything get in the way of you getting to the polls, and take some people with you. And keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the NEWSMAX app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Hey, it's Jerry Callahan from The Callahan Show. You can listen to us every day. We react to the latest news, politics, sports, and all the madness in the world. I'll give you my opinion with a little edge, a little attitude. I'm an unapologetic right-winger, trapped behind enemy lines in deep blue Boston, so I'm used to taking on the mainstream media mob. You can hear us anywhere you get your podcast, or you can listen every day at newsmax.com/listen.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is NEWSMAX. It's real news for real people.